In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, November 24th, here on the Korean Peninsula. President Yoon is in Paris to rally greater support for Busan's bid to bring home the 2030 World Expo, as competing cities await the result of the deciding vote scheduled for November 28th at the International Bureau of Expositions. Meanwhile, top diplomats of Seoul, Beijing and Tokyo are poised to meet this weekend in the southern port city of Busan here in the country to address, among other issues, the prospects of a Trilateral Summit amid the host of geopolitical challenges worldwide. And a ceasefire goes into effect in Gaza for a period of 4 days starting 7 in the morning on this Friday amid a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas, but the former says its military operation against the Palestinian militant group will commence once the ceasefire ends. We start in Paris, where President Yoon is actively making his final pitch in support of Busan's bid for the 2030 World Expo. Our senior presidential correspondent Oh Soo-young starts us off.
The World Expo in Busan would be a place where culture, technology and ideas meet and create synergy between countries. That's according to President Yoon on Thursday, addressing representatives of the Bureau International des Expositions in Paris, as he pushed for South Korea to host the 2030 edition of the exhibition. The international fair, which began with London's Great Exhibition in 1851, is held every 5 years to showcase humanity's advances in science, industry and culture as mirrors of their time, and also set out visions for the future. It's the second time this year that the South Korean president has visited the French capital, where the organising body of the World Expo is located. It is here in Paris, where the final vote for the host city will be held on Tuesday. Busan, Riyadh and Rome are in the running to host the World Expo that will run from May to October in 2030, with representatives of 182 BIE member states casting a secret vote. At a banquet held to promote Busan's bid on Thursday, Yoon greeted Paris-based diplomats and BIE delegates and highlighted the growing interest in Korean culture, including food, music and movies, among people around the world. He said with the appeal of Korea and Busan's cultural assets, the exhibition in 2030 would promote understanding and exchanges of different cultures, technologies and ideas as an expo of solidarity.
Korea is a country of future of technology, innovation, very dynamic, very attractive in terms of culture. And one way to leverage on this is to leverage on tangible things, which means foreign policy, working on cooperation for existing projects, trade, but it's also intangible. Intangible means culture and means potential in science, innovation. And actually the intangible aspect is the most attractive feature of Korea in Europe and many countries these days.
Under the theme of transforming our world, navigating towards a better future, Busan aims to become a solution platform to address common challenges facing humanity by promoting global solidarity and cooperation for development and prosperity. The theme is rooted in South Korea's history of transformation, from the ashes of the 1950 to 53 Korean War to become a tech and cultural powerhouse. During his 3-day stay in Paris, Yoon will hold more BIE-related engagements, leading efforts across government and the private sector, including the nation's top conglomerates like Samsung, LG and Lotte. The top office has hinted that the final presentation for Busan will be delivered by an influential figure in the international community. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Paris.
And while we wait for that final presentation, my colleague Kim Do-yeon chronicles the president's efforts to better promote Busan's prospects of bringing home that global event that began as soon as he entered the top office. To take a look.
105 key figures from 91 countries met during 12 overseas trips and one nosebleed. That's the sum of President Yoon Suk-yeol's all-out effort to host the World Expo 2030 in Busan, as the campaign to host the expo comes to an end in Paris next Tuesday. For him, it is an opportunity for South Korea to become a true leader in the global community while giving Busan an opportunity to develop further, a big win both domestically and internationally. In fact, it only took 20 days from his inauguration to kick things off as he chaired the first committee meeting on the bid.
우리가 가진 모든 역량을 결집해야 합니다. 정부의 교섭 사절단 구성과 파견 계획을 조속히 마련해야 합니다.
Then things really started to pick up pace as he went on overseas trips. NATO in June 2022 was his first foreign multilateral trip where he promoted Busan during his 10 sideline summits.
제가 나토에 가서도 그 양자 회담을 하면서 그 지지를 호소할 때 여러 그 귀국의 그 상품을 전 세계에 그 보여주는 데 있어서 대한민국만큼 확실하게 그 광고를 해줄 수 있는 그런 인프라를 갖춘 경쟁국은 없다. 그런 점을 강조를 해왔고.
As he continued to push for Busan during overseas trips, a chance came to bring the focus back home as officials from the Bureau International des Expositions Inquiry Mission visited Korea to assess Busan. President Yoon welcomed the representatives and emphasized the unity of South Korean people behind the Busan bid.
미래 세대가 더 나은 세상을 꿈꾸고 세계 시민이 더 나은 미래를 꿈꿀 수 있도록 박람회 유치 활동을 진심을 다해 펼쳐가고 있습니다.
In June, he himself was part of the presenters at the BIE General Assembly along with K-pop star Psy and other prominent figures. This is something the other contenders, Saudi Arabia and Italy, did not do, showing the unity from the top of the government to each citizen was the exact edge Busan offered.
We will make it the best World Expo of all time. Central and local governments, companies and citizens, all political parties, and more than 7.5 million overseas Koreans are truly united in their wish for the Busan Expo.
The true highlight was his trip to New York for the UN General Assembly in September. In a span of 5 days, he had 41 sideline bilateral summits with other leaders in town. All this as he made a UN address urging the closing of division in the world, saying the Busan Expo 2030 was perfect for that.
그동안 이루어낸 성장과 발전의 경험을 국제사회와 널리 공유함으로써 대한민국이 국제사회로부터 받은 도움을 돌려드리고자 합니다.
It was during a cabinet meeting after this trip, according to reports, that the president suffered a nosebleed due to fatigue. But it was also the pressure, as amid extreme political and social divide in the country, the Busan Expo is one thing that's wanted by both sides of the aisle. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In other news, human rights groups are calling on the International Bureau of Expositions to vote against Saudi Arabia's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. The call was made in an open letter to the Bureau by 15 groups, including Democracy for the Arab World Now, European Saudi Organization for Human Rights, as well as Freedom House and the Human Rights Foundation. They claim Saudi Arabia routinely violates human rights via unjustified detention, cracks down on women's rights advocates and restricts freedom of speech. Saudi Arabia's capital Riyadh is engaged in a three-way race against Busan and Rome to host the expo. Foreign ministers representing Seoul, Beijing and Tokyo are scheduled to sit down in the southern port city of Busan this weekend for talks that, among other issues of interest, may pave the path to a trilateral summit. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji reports.
Top diplomats of South Korea, China and Japan will sit down for talks to discuss ways to resume the holding of a trilateral summit between their leaders that has not taken place for the past 4 years. Seoul's foreign ministry announced on Friday that Foreign Minister Park Jin and his Chinese and Japanese counterparts, Wang Yi and Yuko Kamikawa, are set to meet in Busan on Sunday. Foreign ministers of the three countries last held such a meeting in August 2019 in Beijing. The ministry explained that the three officials will discuss details regarding resuming the trilateral summit, as well as ways to boost cooperation between the three countries, and other regional and global matters will also be on the agenda. The ministry added that Park will also hold separate bilateral meetings with his Chinese and Japanese counterparts. The Trilateral Summit between the presidents of the three countries was last held in December 2019 in China's southwestern city of Chengdu. It has not taken place for more than 4 years, largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic and strained relations between Seoul and Tokyo. The South Korean government, which aims to hold this kind of summit before the end of this year, has been in talks with Japan and China after the three countries agreed to hold a three-way meeting at an early date during a senior officials meeting in September. Sunday will also mark the first time in more than 2 years that Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi is visiting South Korea. All eyes are now on the message China will send in response to heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula following North Korea's recent military spy satellite launch. 배은지, Arirang News.
And speaking about that satellite mission by Pyongyang, North Korea's Kim Jong-un has linked his regime's presence in space to the right of self-defense. Our Lee Seung-jae explains.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was all smiles as he visited the National Aerospace Development Administration on Thursday alongside his daughter Kim Joo-ae. According to the North State-run Korean Central News Agency, the visit came a day after North Korea announced it had successfully launched a new type of carrier rocket, Cheolima-1, loaded with the reconnaissance satellite Manligyang-1. During his visit to the Space Center, Kim said having a military reconnaissance satellite is a prior exercise of the right to self-defense that cannot be compromised. Praising scientists, engineers, and executives who led the successful launch of its first spy satellite, Kim said the satellite has greatly improved the regime's war deterrence capabilities. The KCNA also reported that its spy satellite had taken pictures of Andersen Air Force Base and Apra Harbor on the U.S. territory of Guam and transmitted them to Pyongyang. The North Korean leader saw the satellite photos during his visit and called for the need to operate more reconnaissance satellites to enhance the North's self-defense capabilities and the effectiveness of its military strike means. North Korea said that the military reconnaissance satellite will officially begin its mission on December 1st. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, 4 days of ceasefire goes into effect in Gaza starting Friday morning in light of the recently agreed hostage deal between Israel and Hamas. But the former, that is Israel, has made it clear that its military campaign to eradicate the Palestinian militant group will resume right after the short pause in fighting. Our Shin Se-byuk has the latest.
Israel and Hamas are set to begin a 4-day truce on Friday.
The beginning of the pause will be 7 a.m. Friday, the 24th of November, and it will last, of course, as agreed, for 4 days.
This means a comprehensive ceasefire in the war-torn Gaza Strip, marking a brief respite from the war that began after Hamas launched attacks on Israel on October 7th. Also happening at the beginning of the truce, according to Qatari mediators, is the release of the first batch of hostages. 13 Israeli women and child hostages will be released at around 4 p.m. on Friday. The two sides also have agreed to release a total of 50 hostages out of some 240 kidnapped within the 4 days. In return, Israel will free 150 Palestinians currently being held in prison. Humanitarian aid will also start flowing into the Gaza Strip. According to officials in Gaza, since the October 7th attack, nearly 15,000 people have died in Gaza, including over 6,000 children, while some 36,000 people have been injured. And the death toll could be even larger as authorities in Gaza pointed to difficulties in retrieving bodies as the war escalated. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the war will continue after the pause.
We'll continue with our war aims, namely to eradicate Hamas.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, speaking to Israeli Navy troops on Thursday, also vowed that Israel would resume, quote, intense fighting after the, quote, short truce. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
On the economic front, Korea and Brazil are poised to boost cooperation in trade, industry and energy. According to Seoul's Trade Ministry on this Friday, the two countries have inked a trade and investment promotion framework with Brazil's Vice Trade Minister Marcio Elias Rosa here in the capital city. Annual bilateral meetings under this framework will be held to address ways to ensure a productive collaboration. Brazil is the first South American nation and the 12th nation overall to pen a trade and investment promotion framework with South Korea. Also, the local front, the shipbuilding industry here is seeking to further sharpen its edge over the global competition by seeking green and smart technology. Our business correspondent Lee Soo-jin reports.
South Korean shipbuilders have been turning to green technology and embarking on a digital transformation. According to shipping analysis firm Clarkson Research, shipbuilders here won 1.54 million compensated gross tons, or 62% of global shipbuilding orders in October, overtaking their biggest competitors, Chinese firms, which secured 33%. This upward trend is expected to continue as the shipping industry moves towards alternative fuels to meet International Maritime Organization standards. The IMO, a UN agency that regulates global shipping, revised its greenhouse gas strategy in July to aim for net zero emissions by around 2050. And it's not just big shipyards that are making headway in developing green technologies. This ship right here, operated by a local port authority, is Asia's first LNG-fueled ship. It uses truck-to-ship bunkering, where LNG is transferred from a truck to a ship, as well as an alternative maritime power system, where ships in port use electricity from the national grid, rather than generating their own using diesel generators. Most of these operations, such as the LNG bunkering, have also been digitalized and can now be managed from a command post on the ship's bridge. There are also smart shipyards such as one in Hanwha Ocean, where robots and virtual reality are used in the building process to increase efficiency and shorten development cycles.
We are working towards incorporating the latest ICT technologies to connect the entire shipyard and establish a smart and secure development system that can be operated autonomously.
It has also established a high-tech lab dedicated to researching ways to prevent sloshing or liquid movement that can damage tanks that contain liquid fuels such as LNG. And accelerating digital transformation will help South Korea stay competitive in shipbuilding, according to an industry expert.
The big three are already doing a considerable amount of their own technological development. This means that by 2030, it's highly likely that we will at least be able to reach the third stage of digitalization.
The third stage of digitalization includes building a ship with an AI platform that will give directions to the crew on how to fix any issues, with the fourth and final stage being completely unmanned ships. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Pundits say the development of a non-invasive device to monitor blood sugar levels for patients with diabetes has been the dream for decades. Well, up next, we share with you the advances by a group of Korean researchers. Our Yoon-jin has more.
It is crucial for patients with diabetes to constantly monitor their glucose levels. And it has always been an inconvenience for them to have to prick their fingers for blood sugar readings. But a team of Korean researchers have developed a new glucose sensor. Weighing only 14 milligrams, the adhesive has a microneedle that's less than 1 millimeter long. The wearable microneedle uses a photopatternable gel electrolyte similar to the technology used in semiconductors that keeps the sensor light and high performance.
We've developed a technology that can automatically shape the strips to the desired areas, and the microneedle sensor can be attached as a single item.
The result is a wearable ultra-thin blood glucose sensor, and its accuracy was tested by using anesthesia on a rat. The rat's glucose level was continuously monitored every 20 minutes over 4 hours, and the results showed the same readings as existing glucometers.
We searched for a platform that could free patients from having to prick their fingers for each glucose level reading, for better quality of life.
The research team added that this new wearable skin adhesive microneedle sensor will allow patients with diabetes to monitor their glucose levels more conveniently and only having to change out the strip every 2 weeks. The latest development has been published in the international journal Device, a sister journal to Cell. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Ecuador, the youngest president-elect in the country's history was sworn in as president on Thursday. 35-year-old Daniel Noboa, a millionaire heir to a banana trade empire and an unexperienced politician, is set to serve only 18 months in his role, the remaining term of his predecessor, Guillermo Lasso. In his inauguration speech, Noboa vowed to tackle the country's ongoing issue of violence and boost the economy by creating jobs. Once regarded as one of the safest countries in South America, Ecuador in recent years has seen an extreme surge of violence driven by rival drug trafficking groups. According to local authorities, drug-related violence has been behind some 3,600 murders so far this year. Following the August murder of anti-corruption advocate, presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio, there were calls in the country for immediate action. An early election was held in October as Ecuador's previous president dissolved the country's legislature to dodge an impeachment vote back in May. The Pakistani government's decision to charge Afghan refugees leaving Pakistan for Western countries under resettlement schemes has been slammed. UN officials and Western diplomats called the $830 fee shocking and frustrating. The move comes after Pakistan announced a major deportation scheme for undocumented foreigners, including refugees, with November 1st set as a deadline for about 1.7 million unregistered Afghan migrants to leave the country. The US government has announced plans to resettle around 25,000 Afghans, while the UK will provide refuge for up to 20,000 in the coming years. Many of the Afghani refugees fled to Pakistan following the Taliban takeover in 2021. In Ireland, police quelled rioting in the capital Dublin on Thursday night, which followed a stabbing incident earlier the same day. Rioters attacked police and burned police cars and trams and caused damage to stores in the city centre, with looting also reported. While the main cause of the disturbance is unclear, police have blamed the riots on right-wing ideology following a knife attack on Parnell Square East in Dublin city centre, which left a 5-year-old girl and a woman in her 30s seriously injured. Police commented that the suspect is a man in his 40s who was also seriously injured. The Turkish Central Bank announced on Thursday another interest rate hike, which sets its policy rate at 40%. The new interest rate sees an increase of 5 percentage points from the previous policy rate as the Turkish Central Finance Agency aims to curb the double-figure inflation, which came in at 61.36% last month. This interest rate hike is 6th in a row by the central bank. Interest rates were just 8.5% in 2018. Kim Ji-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It was one rough morning with sudden icy temperatures and sharp winds. And afternoon highs in most places are also about 15 degrees lower than Thursday, with cold wave alerts issued across Korea. East of Gangwon-do province is under a cold wave warning today, and these cold wave alerts will remain in place through the weekend. A strong wind advisory has also been issued for coastal regions, dragging down the feels-like temperatures. And especially those in the east of Gangwon-do province are having the toughest day with wind, dry alerts, and that cold wave warning issued. Making matters tougher is snow. Chungcheong-namdo, Jeollado, and Jeju could see 1 to 3 centimeters of snow through late this afternoon, so please be careful out on the roads. Seoul seeing highs of just 2 degrees, Daejeon and Chuncheon topping out at 3 degrees this afternoon. And of course, that sharp wind will make you feel colder today. Tomorrow morning looks to be even colder and stay bitter cold through the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the top stories at this hour here in Korea. Thank you for watching, but do stay with us for our panel session coming up right after this break.